Here we go. All right. Welcome to the Main Zone. I am Jermaine. Thank you for tuning into my podcast. Hope everybody's staying safe. The coronavirus is running through the country again. Keep a mask on. Just a quick, just a piece of advice. Doesn't hurt to put a mask on, even if you think the whole thing's a hoax. I don't think it's a hoax, so I wear my mask. Kind of sucks when you're in the gym, but I just pretend I'm doing elevation training, like those real cool masks from a couple years ago that everybody wanted to buy. But again, be safe. I want to thank everybody for tuning into my first podcast, my salute to fathers. Hope you all enjoyed it. Shout out to all those dads that I mentioned, and then just all the great fathers out there. Hope you had a great Father's Day. Now, there's a few things that we could talk about today. I mean, the world of sports, you had the whole Bubba Wallace thing with the noose in his garage. Then you have baseball finally getting started. They're going to play 60 games in 66 days. That's insane. If I got that correct, that's pretty tough to actually do. Then the NBA is gearing up over in Orlando in the bubble here in July, end of July. They tested 302 players and 16 came back positive. So we'll see how that goes. I hear Adam Silver will shut down the league, the restart, if it starts to spread once they get started. Several players, though, are not going to be heading to Orlando. Trevor Ariza, Avery Bradley due to family concerns. And then you have Davis Bertans. He's going to be a free agent, so he doesn't want to get hurt. I understand that. Can't blame him for that. You can't blame Trevor or Avery either. Family first, they've made great money too, so this is not even an issue. And it does open up an opportunity for other guys to be on NBA rosters. We might see J.R. Smith again. He might be playing for the Lakers here in the next couple of weeks. And then you have the NFL. They're supposed to get started here in July as well. It should be interesting. They're pushing to have their start date as normal. So the kick off their new season. Chiefs to be right there again, I believe. But we're not going over today. I'm not going to discuss, who wins the NBA playoffs or who's going to win the Super Bowl. My big thing I want to discuss is who should sign Colin Kaepernick. I mean, with this entire movement, Black Lives Matter movement that is sweeping the nation and the world, rightfully so, we are finally going to have, I think, teams showing valid interest in signing Kaepernick. For all the y'all that don't know, he hasn't played an NFL game since January of 2017. So he played the 2016 season was the last time he actually played. Now, before I give you all the teams that I think should sign him, before I do a quick comparison to him and Muhammad Ali, I am going to give you a quick history lesson or timeline of Kaepernick. Now, he is a second-round pick in the 2011 draft. That's the same draft that had Cam Newton going number 1. Second season, he took over the starting job. By his third year, the 49ers were playing in the Super Bowl. You got to remember, that was the Harbaugh Bowl 1, where Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh went up against each other in the Super Bowl with the Ravens winning. Remember Ray Lewis's last game in the NFL. But even in that Super Bowl, Kaepernick threw for over 300 yards. He ran for 50 as well. They ended up losing, but he had a good game. He looked like a similar version to Lamar Jackson, or you can say a poor man's version of Lamar Jackson, not as fast. He's not the most accurate passer, but he has a great arm, strong arm, I should say, and he could run. The team record got worse over the next couple of years, but his numbers kind of, hovered around the same as that Super Bowl run. So he didn't make a huge jump in production, but he didn't just tank and become a bust either. But then, all of a sudden, I'm pretty sure he thought about it for a long time and tried to figure out a way to deal with what was on his heart. he decided to sit down. So 8/26/2016, he sits during a preseason game. After the game, he tells NFL media, and I quote, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppressed black people and people of color." That's the end quote right there. He becomes very outspoken on race issues like protests by white supremacists and police shootings of unarmed black men. That is key right there. He stated what his protest was for. It's not about the flag. It's not about, he hates America. It literally is about the systematic racism of black people in this country, and then the violence that police have towards black people that still doesn't end. So, but okay. After that, other players start to kneel or sit. Sorry, sit. But then Colin Kaepernick meets with a former Green Beret and NFL player, Nate Boyer. They have some dialogue and discuss the best way to protest peacefully, the most respectful way to protest. And they come up with an agreement where Kaepernick begins his kneeling. So on September 1st, he kneels during the anthem. On September 5th, President Barack Obama, quote, says, "I think he cares about some real legitimate issues that have to be talked about." So again, that's a quote from President Obama. There are real issues that need to be dealt with, and that is why Kaepernick was kneeling. His big issue, the treatment of black people in this country and police violence. Roger Goodell, though, the NFL commissioner, did not agree with Kaepernick kneeling. He opposed it. September 11, 2016, more players are beginning to kneel. And then January 1st, the regular season ends. The 49ers had a horrible year, and that was Kaepernick's last game. March 2017, he opts out of his contract. August of 2017, he's still not signed, and then more players are protesting. You get to September 24, 2017. President Trump says any player kneeling should be fired. So again, you can't, in his eyes, you should not peacefully protest or you should lose your job. Very difference of opinion or stance, I should say, than the President Obama. In October of 2017, Kaepernick files a grievance against the NFL. He accuses all 32 teams of colluding to keep him out of the league. Again, this is a guy that was in the Super Bowl a couple years before that. May of 2018, owners ruled that players can no longer kneel. They can stay in the locker room, but they cannot kneel during the national anthem. And then Eric Reed files a grievance saying the NFL has blackballed him. August 2018, Kaepernick gets a hearing in his grievance case. September 2018, Nike's Just Do It campaign is released with Kaepernick being the face of it. February 2019, the NFL reaches an agreement with Reed and Kaepernick. We don't know the amount of money that they received. We just know that they reached an agreement. Then we get to November 2019. The NFL invites Kaepernick to a workout at the Falcons facility. A couple hours before that, Kaepernick moves it. 8 teams show up. He still finishes the year unsigned. And then we go May 25, 2020. George Floyd is murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Horrible. No need to dive into that. The senseless death of the police officer killing an unarmed black man, just basically didn't even care, just did it. Okay. Protests began all over the country, all over the world for that matter. The Black Lives Movement really, really hits a fever pitch with just a growing frustration of the senseless killings of black people all over this country by police officers. They're supposed to be here to protect. So then June 4, 2020, the NFL players shoot a commercial honoring the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, in that commercial, there's a lot of prominent all-pro football players. But I think the big key to this is Patrick Mahomes was in the commercial. Patrick Mahomes is an NFL MVP. Patrick Mahomes is the Super Bowl MVP of this past Super Bowl. And he's probably the face of the NFL for the next, let's say, 10 to 12 years minimum. So when that happened, I think the NFL as a whole had to do some soul searching and realize that we better make a statement. Well, lo and behold, the next day, Commissioner Goodell admits that the NFL is wrong in how they handled previous peaceful protests by NFL players. He states that he's behind the Black Lives Matter movement. He states, Mr. Goodell, that he supports his black players, which make up the majority of the NFL. He wants to be on the front lines of this change in America, the social injustice that black people have each and every day. That's a big change from 2016. Now, I think the reason for the change, again, goes back to the power that Patrick Mahomes has. But within his apology, he never mentions Colin Kaepernick's name. I don't know why. It could be, legal reasons. If he mentions his name and apologizes and saying that they were wrong, there could be something where Kaepernick can use that and say that, you all intentionally kept me from the league and face some legal action. I don't know. I'm just guessing on that. And then just yesterday, June 25th, LeBron says Roger Goodell owes Kaepernick an apology. You can agree or disagree with that. That's just a statement by LeBron that was made while I was thinking of what I was going to talk about next. Again, I think this is the first time in 3 years that Kaepernick's going to have the chance to make an NFL roster. Now, all right, so there's his history lesson of Colin Kaepernick all the way to this point today where we're about to gear up for training camps. And I'm hearing, if you read in all the blogs and Bleacher Report and things, that there are some teams that are possibly interested in signing him or bringing him in for a workout. Now, before I give you my 5 teams I think should sign him, let me throw this out there. You could you could compare Kaepernick to an athlete, Muhammad Ali, in the way that they've handled their I will stand for something if it means lose everything. Y'all remember, some of y'all too young, but in the prime of Muhammad Ali's career, he lost his boxing license when he refused to be drafted into the army because he didn't feel that, he needed to go to Vietnam. There's no reason for him to go over there and kill people that he had no problem with. And his reason was the people that were wanting to hurt him were right there in the United States, the white people of the United States. Keep in mind, this is right during the civil rights movement. He had also become a black Muslim within the black Muslim movement that happened in the 60s under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. So let's not act like at that time, Muhammad Ali was revered and loved by everybody in America. There's a lot of people that hated him for the stance that he had took against the American government. And then you have, again, he lost his prime. So Ali didn't fight for 25 to close to he was 29 years old. So that's a boxer's prime. So he lost a lot of his prime years of his life, lost a lot of money during that time. Now that piece there, again, I'm not comparing Kaepernick to the greatest boxer of all time. I'm just comparing the situation where he was able to stand for something, even though he lost everything. And it might flip around and end up being right. So take Kaepernick, he's lost out on his prime, even though through advances in technology and nutrition and training, the prime of athletes lasts longer. But Kaepernick has lost, 3 full seasons of football because he stood for something that now we're seeing he was actually right. Even the NFL is admitting that he was right. So we'll see. I'm really hoping he gets a fair shot. He's only 32 years old. He still has a strong arm. He looks like he's in good shape. So man, it'd be great to see some teams just bring him in for a good look, and not to be a backup or not to be, media hoopla for 1 or 2 days, but give him a realistic shot to make a roster. But there's my comparison with Muhammad Ali and Colin Kaepernick. They both stood for something that was greater than their themselves. It cost them dearly, and at the end, for Muhammad Ali, he's one of the most loved athletes of all time until he passed 4 years ago. So hopefully the same can be said for Kaepernick. When we find out that at the end of the day, his protest, his peaceful protest, was actually accurate. Now, let's move on to the teams. Number one, Jacksonville. I mean, come on. Y'all are horrible. No one cares about you. Anybody out there, name 5 players for the Jacksonville Jaguars, real quick. Yep, thanks. Can't. They have the cap space. At least if they bring him in and sign him, they'll have the media will swoop down, and even for the first, let's say, 6 or 7 games that he plays for him, you'll have a large amount of media wanting to do stories on the Jaguars. Other than that, you're irrelevant. I mean, no one pays attention to you. I think that'd be a good spot. New England, Brady left. Belichick can handle all the media. He'll just shut them all off. I think Kaepernick was better than Stidham that they have right now. I mean, he's hasn't proved anything. Stidham hasn't. So I think that'd be a good option for the Patriots. I don't think Robert Kraft would do it though, but I think it would be a solid spot. You have this Tennessee Titans. I mean, I know they just gave Tannehill some big money, but let's be realistic. He flamed out in with the Dolphins. He had a hot run in the playoffs, but I mean, was that him or was that Derrick Henry? Let's be honest. Henry's running through everybody. That type of system would work well with Kaepernick with the play action because so many people get in the box against Derrick Henry. So you can go play action. You can do the read option. I mean, there's so many things you can utilize Kaepernick's skill set to win games. The Bears. Next team is the Bears. I mean, the Bears. They have Nick Foles, who got a big payday because of his time with the Eagles when he won the Super Bowl. And then you have Mitchell Trubisky, who, just call it what it is, he's a bust. You're a bust when you're in the same draft class as Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. You go ahead of them in the draft, and your numbers are horrible. You don't win games, and these guys are leading their teams to the playoffs. And in Mahomes' case, he's already won a Super Bowl. You can go to Chicago, and then you have it never happened because he just signed this guy to a franchise tag for big money. But the Dallas Cowboys, man, I would have loved to see Kaepernick. Just bring him in, see what it looks like with all the weapons that the Cowboys have. You have Zeke in the backfield. You have Cooper on one side. You have the rookie on the other side. You have Gallup right there as well. I mean, the weapons that he has at his disposal with a still decent but aging offensive line, I think it would have been real interesting. We all know Jerry Jones never would have did that. He loves Dak Prescott. He was playing hardball with the money. I think he's wasting money giving Dak so much money to be there. I think Kaepernick would be a serviceable quarterback that would win as many games as Dak Prescott. That's just my opinion. I've never been a huge Dak fan. I think his story is great. Fourth round quarterback. He's had a lot of personal adversity. He's had to overcome. Those things are great. But as far as like results on the field, look at his record against winning teams. Look at his record against losing teams. He's 2 different quarterbacks. He looks like the top 5 all time against terrible teams, and you put him against elite defense or teams with a winning record, and he looks very mediocre. So let's say in a perfect world, I'm Jerry Jones. We know I'm not. I don't have a yacht. I don't own a team. But perfect world, I would have let Dak walk, see what he can get on the open market, Teams don't have that type of space anyway. Then I would have brought in Kaepernick, been like, yo, let's roll. He looks great. I'm going with Kaepernick for the next 3 years. Cowboys are in a win now mode anyway. So I would have just, tried to hit a home run. I think at the end of it all, I don't see him losing any more games than Dak Prescott. It probably though cost you about, let's say, $10 to $15 million less to sign him. So that's my take on the Cowboys. That's my wish team. I know it won't happen, but it'd be interesting to see in the next couple of weeks which teams do look to sign him. Let me know what you think. Did I miss a team? Again, I didn't name teams he could be the backup for. He could be the backup for the Chargers. He could be the backup for the Seahawks. He could be the backup. He could be the backup in Arizona. There's no reason to go to Miami. You already have Tua. There's no reason to go to New York. There's no reason to go to Buffalo. There's no reason to go to Pittsburgh. There's no reason to go to, let's think, who else? San Francisco. There's no reason to go to Green Bay. Dark horse team could be the Lions. They're always Matthew Stafford's always hurt. Lately, he's been getting hurt a lot. Other than that, though, those are my 5 teams. Again, New England, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Chicago. And then, of course, it can't happen now, but I would love to see it happen with the Cowboys. But they have the owner that tells his players they better toe the line. So I don't think Kaepernick's his type of player. Okay, well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode 2. Until next time, be blessed, stay safe. I'm out.